This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Alright, welcome everyone. My name is Kurt. I am a comic book colorist. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This art today was drawn by Guile Sharp, and I'll be coloring it. I wanted to try something new and something more detailed than what I usually do. And something with, I wanted to work on subtle light, and more diffuse light. And I tried a technique that I picked up from Mark Brunet and Marco Bucci here on YouTube, which is to basically paint something called ambient occlusion first. And ambient occlusion is just a way of describing the little areas of a form or an environment that the ambient light can't really reach. Okay, and so these are the shadows that are usually forming in the nooks and crannies of things and that wrap around things away from light sources. And so I've never really tried working like this before, so it was kind of an interesting challenge. I learned a lot doing it, and I ended up doing a couple of these characters this way just to kind of practice this. And so this whole bit of shadows that you're seeing that I'm putting on now is just on a hard light layer, even though it would probably look the same in normal. But I end up changing the colors later, and that's where that hard light mode kind of comes in handy. But at this stage, I'm just using a regular soft brush and just kind of throwing shadows in all the areas that what the video game people call ambient occlusion. Marco Bucci's got an excellent video explaining this, and I'll link that in the description below. His definition's way better than mine. So after I've got the shadows in there, then I'm going in and putting in some base colors. And this had a white background, a simple background. And so I'm starting by filling it all with one color and then changing it all based on the flats that are already done on this one. You can't see them because they're underneath all the colors you're seeing now. But I used those flats to grab these selections. I'm using the what's it called, the reference mode, or the reference setting, or whatever it's called. I set the flats to reference layer, is what I'm trying to say. And so I'm grabbing the flats from that layer without having to go to that layer with the wand. So anyway, I'll try to put sentences together for this today. But anyway, so at this point, it's all just base colors and ambient occlusion. And I'm going to treat the rest of the light and shadows kind of how I normally would. So this ambient occlusion just ends up being an extra layer of detail. Here you can see me changing those base colors a little bit. Coloring with just a straight out gray or black shadow, it rarely works very well because it's not really realistic. Most lighting situations have some kind of color in it, and so when you have a completely gray shadow, it doesn't work that well. But now you see me playing around with the main lighting I'm going to do on this. So what you're going to see here is basically a hard light layer filled with that kind of purpley shadow color. And now I'm on the mask painting that color away. That's the long and short of it. So I'm that little bit of purple shadow will be left over in addition to the ambient occlusion layers. So they kind of layer on top of each other and kind of create a cool kind of soft lighting effect, which is what I was going for. Here I decided I wanted to try lightening some of these lines on his suit a little bit. And so I took the time to highlight all of those, and you'll see me kind of paint a little bit lighter version of that color on there. Before we finish this video up, I wanted to mention you guys, one of my favorite artists is Patrick Brown. He does great stuff, really amazing work, dynamic, great storytelling, great lighting. He uses, of course, a lot of the principles we've talked about on this channel over the years. You guys know I love learning new stuff. I've learned a lot on Skillshare from Patrick and his course and others like it. There's tons of classes on all sorts of topics, from illustration, graphic design, music production, web development, all sorts of different things. These classes are designed to fit into the schedule of normal people, so most of them are under an hour long, bite-sized lessons. So if you're a curious person, you want to learn from professionals, members get unlimited access to thousands of classes with hands-on projects and a massive community of other learners. I have courses on coloring with Clip Studio and Procreate there myself. So the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description will get Skillshare Premium for free for a limited time, and then it's just $10 a month. So thanks again for Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Check the links in the description. Okay, now the bills are paid. So now on things like metal, I'll tend to use a lasso because you want the edges to be hard. On when, you know, the metal has hard edges. But for things like skin, I kept it a little bit softer and more organic. And that's one of the simplest ways to improve how a drawing looks, is just to make sure that your surfaces are all not exactly the same texture, you know. So the texture on the sword is different from the texture on his skin, different from the texture on his, you know, suit or whatever. So here I'm going in and I'm highlighting all of his hair, or selecting all of his hair. I'm going to lighten his hair a little bit. Not much, but just enough to make it look a little bit more interesting. I did the same thing on his skin in a few places. I lightened that up too. Again, using a lasso here because, you know, if it's hair and I want the edges to be sharp, then that's something I would use a lasso for. And all the rendering on this is just in hard light mode. There's not a right or wrong mode to use, but I just like the way that that hard light works and how it blends with the colors. This green you're seeing is just me dropping in a flat color to hold the selection. Anytime I've got a really complicated selection, I don't trust the program to crash and lose the selection. So I'll sometimes just drop in a random color. And then you can see I use that selection to kind of paint some of that orange and some of the highlights into the hair there. And keeping that same selection, I went in and added a few more highlights too, just to make his hair look shiny and look like he belongs in a shampoo commercial. And now I'm starting to add highlights. Everything so far has been sort of like mid-tone down, and so this is actually getting brighter. Um, Again, this is still in a hard light layer. I'm just using that yellow color you see up there at the top. I'm starting with really broad strokes on things like his shoulder, just to kind of get the rough shapes in there, and then I'm just tightening that up with the brush, getting smaller and smaller as the details get more and more detailed. Still going through, adding one more real bright pass on these highlights. I wanted to get pretty close to white on this so that this looked really reflective and shiny and all that stuff. So by getting close to white on this, that kind of helps with that. And that little pink you see in the sword is just reflecting off his hair. I imagine that if his hair is as bright and red as it as it appears to be, then it would definitely reflect in the sword. So that's that kind of purpley pink color you're seeing is reflected from his hair. At least that's how I considered it. And this thing's a little bit more reflective than his skin. So I added some of that orange from like his arm reflecting in it, and tried to color it in a way that it looked like more of a reflective surface than like his skin would be. This took around 2.5 hours, maybe 3 in real time. I can't remember exactly. This is this is actually the fourth one of these that I did. So at this point, I'd kind of nailed down the process, and the first one took a little bit longer. Oh, that's me on the live stream explaining how everything is a basic shape for the most part. Cones and cylinders and spheres and all that stuff that sounds too boring to learn how to render is probably what you should be learning how to render. Because just about anything can be simplified. And that's kind of how I think about this anyway. So this is coming into the end here. Of course, I tried to make this look a little bit more shiny than the rest of it, since it looked like it had that kind of gold shiny texture in the drawing. So I made sure the highlights on it were really bright and it was really reflective and kind of reflecting all the colors all the way around it. But this is coming up to an end here, so I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check the links in the description if you want to support this channel and what I do, which is try to make color easier for people. I saved the brightest of highlights for the very end. And threw those on, again, just right up near the top. It helps create a little bit of contrast and more focus on his head than the rest of them. But yeah, there you go. Thanks again for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one. Take care.